Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is going to be a video covering a lot of new mouse pads that have hit the market or are hitting the market. A lot of these do strike me as pretty new and refreshing in terms of an aesthetic or a mixture of materials and feeling of the textile itself. I know the mousepad market is very saturated, and if you guys already have your main mousepad, you certainly do not need to upgrade or side grade. But a lot of these things are hitting the market that are actually fairly nice. So I do want to go over my thoughts and just what you guys can expect out of some of these pads. I'm going to start with the one that I like the most. This is the ESPTiger Pioneer Xiang. This is a 480 by 400 millimeter thick pad, and they advertise the coating as a Slim Flex and the base as a Inoac Slim Flex. But the thing that's interesting about this pad is it falls into this bracket of the Glorious Ice, the Vancer Ice, as well as an Artisan Shidenkai. But the surface itself has a bit of a texture to it, and you feel that texture to a great extent. It's not something that is going to be abrasive on the skin because of the way the surface feels. It's very smooth, very almost silicone-like, and it is just nice on the skin and not abrasive like a Artisan Xiang. The pad falling into that category does have the performance of a fast glass pad. You guys can see with the default crazy light skates here. Dynamic is actually really fast, and static is nice and open and airy as well. It's going to feel on the faster side as far as pads go, but it's got the comfort of a really nice cloth pad. The pad is 4 millimeters thick again, and it has a firmness, a plushness, kind of like an Artisan Soft. And because of that silicone feeling type surface, it actually does maintain its structure quite well on the downstroke into that foam when you're pushing down and getting a little bit of that plush. And that will feel, I think, a little bit better and maintain some consistency with dot skates. Overall, though, the surface just feels quite consistent in terms of X and Y, a little bit of a differential, but it's a very fast, very consistent feeling surface that when I do want to stop, I don't get this sense of wiggle or slipperiness, which I do get on some pads. So if you're looking for something that falls into that Vancer Ice or Artisan Shidenkai type category, but you want a little bit of that texture, this, I think, is a really nice pad that performs like glass, but has that comfortability as a nice plush cloth pad. You guys can see the base as well. It does have a bit of almost like a mirrored look to it. It's a very smooth backing here. You guys can see the ESPTiger branding there, but overall, once you get it set on your desk, it does lay very flat, and it would take quite a bit to get this thing to move. My performance on this pad has been really, really good, but again, if you don't perform well on fast pads, it might not be the pad for you. And up next, I've got a glass pad offering from InfinityMice. This is the Tora. The thing that strikes me the most about the Tora is the design actually shines through the glass really, really well. We saw some nice advancements from Glassworks with the Hana, but this thing, I mean, I almost thought that the design was actually on top of the glass. That's how well it shines through. They've done a really nice job in terms of the design and the aesthetic. I love it. But the nicest thing here is the glass surface itself. It's got a low audible glide. It's not sticky on the skin. And overall, it's just got a really nice balance to it. Like dynamic speed for a glass pad is definitely toned down. And then the static speed, it's still nice and open. I never get this like magnetized type control feeling, but it is a little bit slower than your typical glass pad. I don't find it to be as slow as the Cataclysm that I recently took a look at, but it is quite a few notches down from something like the Guardian or the Beast. So I would say a really nice, interesting, and just a super clean, smooth feeling surface here from InfinityMice. The only downside that I had was during my testing, the base, you'll see the base when I turn this thing over has a little bit of plushness to it. And as you are gliding your mouse, I do have a little bit of movement here on the top right side. So it doesn't sit totally flat on my desk. There's a bit of movement, which was kind of interesting to me that they used kind of like a plushy rubber backing here. It sticks perfectly fine on my desk. It's never going to move, but it would almost be better if it just didn't have a level of plushness to it and sat flat on the desk. It would have reduced the height of the overall pad a little bit, and I think would have resolved that bit of flex there on the pad itself. But again, if you're looking for a glass pad that has an element of control to it and has a super clean aesthetic that really is shining through quite well, super, super smooth, but doesn't feel like oddly silky like some glass pads do, I think it's a really, really nice job here for InfinityMice's first glass showing. Up next, I've got two pads from Click Gaming Gear. It is the Trailblazer. One is the competitive, the other is the premium. I'm going to start here with the premium. You guys can see the backing. The foam density is softer on the premium than it is the competitive, and the foam does sink in rather easily. It's definitely kind of feels like an X-Soft from Artisan, but it doesn't rebound quite as fast, and I think that's probably the easiest distinction when comparing it to the competitive. The competitive is going to feel a little bit faster and a little bit more consistent. In terms of the overall quality, though, the stitching is really nice. The surface itself is over the stitching, but I would say like the textile itself doesn't necessarily wow me. The design is definitely very unique. The tan color as a base, I think, is rather hard in some setups. Like for me, with my white countertop and my colored peripherals, it doesn't really work too well for me. But overall, the surface is nice. It's got some good consistency between X and Y. It feels kind of like a harder, lethal Gaming Gear Saturn. And I think the speed category would probably be around that same point with the current skates that I'm using. So overall, like from a performance standpoint, it does feel rather good. You can definitely perform on this, but I would say if you're looking to use it for gaming, the competitive is a little bit better. The foam density, you can still sink in. It just rebounds quite a bit faster. You can see the base does look kind of has like a carbon fiber look to it. Again, it wouldn't be like a textile that I would say feels new or unique. It's not something that I think you haven't already tried if you've already tried a Lethal Gaming Gear Saturn. But overall, I would say the textile just feels a little bit harder. It feels very tightly knit. And with the process here to get the design on it, I'm sure that had some effect in that regard. But again, it feels rather consistent. It's a pretty similar speed, so I would say in the balanced category here. And the design, if you're really liking it, or if you had like a black desktop and red and black peripherals, I think it would be super, super dope. But obviously, my particular setup, it just doesn't quite work for me. So good pad, but something that you probably may have tried in terms of that speed and feel category. Up next, I have a new pad from OwePowe, and interestingly enough, the pad in terms of its build seems very similar to the competitive version of the Trailblazer. The textile, though, is different. So again, the stitching actually does look very good, and the surface itself is over the stitching. The backing here does not look like that carbon fiber pattern, but it does have these geometric shapes, and the backing and the foam, polyurethane foam here, does feel similar to the Trailblazer in the competitive format. It's plush, but it does rebound very fast in this particular format. The textile itself is nylon and spandex, so it is a hybrid pad, and it does have a hardness to the textile itself. It's very, very tight, so it's not something that's abrasive like a Xiang, but it's not a super, super smooth pad. You feel this textile as you are brushing against the pad. The nylon and spandex together actually do make for a rather fast pad, and it does feel pretty unique in a sense. But overall, like, I have to judge pads on my own personal performance. My performance on this pad was absolutely fantastic. I feel consistent. I feel fast. So if you're looking for a fun pad, something new and of the hybrid nature that should last a while and something that performs pretty well, you can definitely give this a go. Again, the overall quality seems fairly good. Let me see again how much this pad is. The pad's $38. It comes in at 490 by 420. Again, it's not this pad that I'm going to say would be necessarily in my top 5. It's not something that's really, really unique that I think you have to try. But it's definitely a good pad. And again, one that I perform very well on. So it kind of falls into like the same theme to me, like the Trailblazer. It's a little similar to other things on the market. You've maybe have other pads that are a similar speed, but they're both good pads in their own right. So if you like the design, the price is right for you, you can definitely check out these two pads. You guys can see the speed on dynamic with the default crazy light skates. And again, static on this pad feels faster and a little bit more open than the competitive Trailblazer pad. Again, just solid performance for me in my gameplay. And last but not least, I have the ESPTiger Talisman pad. This is the one with the design on it, as you guys can see. I think the design here is pretty dope, and the pad actually is pretty interesting because there's not a lot of control pads with designs. To me, I wouldn't say like it's full-blown control, especially depending on the skates that you're using. But with the default skates, it does feel more along the lines of a Type 99 or a Artisan Zero. You've got some really good control over the dynamic speed as well as the slower staticky movements. And the nice thing is, it's not a mud pad. I just don't like pads that have a lot of like that tug or the magnetism feeling. But just in terms of its general speed, it's got a nice smooth glide to it. And again, dynamic feels a little bit slower and static feels a little bit slower innately. So think like a smoother Type 99 or Artisan Zero type pad. I think it's going to handle hairs and dust better than those pads. So something that's definitely interesting to check out if you guys are looking for a thicker pad and one that has a design and performs like those other pads in that speed category. You guys can see the backing here is pretty dope. It's this neon green color on the back, and it does stick very, very well to the desk. The foam material, I would say, is like an in-between of a soft and an X-soft, but very easy to dig in, and the rebound is rather fast, and the pad is on the thicker side at 4 millimeters. So a great surface here if you're looking for a design and some control. But again, not too slow, but you definitely get some good control here. So guys, that is going to be it for this one. Again, out of like the pads in this video that I will probably have playtime on, I think the first pad that I showed you guys from ESPTiger, the Xiang, I'll probably put a lot of time into that just because it's more the unique side for me, and I'm playing really, really well on it in Apex. It's fast, it's open, it's like a faster glass pad speed, but something that I have that comfort of a cloth pad like this. So it's just pretty interesting, but more likely than not, you'll probably see me back on some glass pads like the Beast or the Guardian in the not too distant future. So I hope it helped, guys. If it did, please leave a sub to the channel. See you guys in the next review. Peace.